Well, hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Not Alone podcast. I'm Brandon Pickett here in the Not Alone podcast studio. It's so great to see you and talk with you again. And as always, we're trying to find different subjects that we can talk about that help you in ministry, that help you maybe with a calling that you're dealing with for ministry. And today's topic is fantastic because it's one of the core values, one of the core missions of SBC of Virginia. That is church planting. And so really what I want to do is bring in a couple guys that really this is what they do full time and have done for years. So first is Josh Turner, our director of church planting for SBCV. Good to see you, Josh.
Yeah, hey everybody, good to be here.
And then Colby Garman, who is helping us in so many different ways up in the northern area of Virginia with church planting. Colby, great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
You bet. Hey, let's start with Josh. Josh, tell us a little background about yourself. You're from Virginia. You're a native Virginian, right?
Yeah, I am from Virginia. I am still actually living in my hometown. It's just worked out that way. I'm still here, planted in my hometown back in 2002, and out of that plant we sent out a couple other churches, but I'm still living here in my hometown and it's quite the blessing.
And you started a church how many years ago?
My goodness, 2002. What is the numbers? Like 25, 20 some years ago.
24.
Yeah, with SBCV. So I had a strategist, a guy named Larry Black. Before that, it was a guy named Delton Beal, and the state convention came along beside me, and it was just a great experience. So, and that's
And then
actually why I
since
heard the term churches plant churches. Like, that's not a
really
new
from
term.
SBCV.
Yes, SBCV came out with that years ago, and that's what started in my head. Like, hey, maybe we should be thinking about planting more churches, not just this one.
Nice. So you were thinking of multiplication before, I was going to say like country before country was cool, but you were
Yes, that's right. But it was SBCV that planted the seed. I wasn't thinking about it. It was like all of a sudden I was hanging out with guys at SBCV and networks and hearing the term, and like all of a sudden it made sense from the Bible that that's what churches should be doing.
Colby, what about you? You've got a church planting background going way back.
Yeah, from the time I was on staff at Stafford Baptist, with Clint Clifton, of course, out of there, we started Pillar, back in 2005. I spent some time overseas as Clint was getting Pillar started. um, in Iceland, just helping to lay the groundwork for an eventual church plant there, and then came back and joined Pillar fairly early on in its development, as we were kind of getting into full swing on developing our church planting plan. That was in 2010, and really kind of full throttle 2011. A little over 15 years ago, and that's what we've been doing ever since. Just do the same thing if it keeps working.
How many pillar churches are there now?
There are 16 Pillar churches now, with one on the way.
Wow. Wow. And they're not just in Virginia, but they're all over, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Most of them are in the U.S., but we do have a church in Okinawa, Japan. We've got a couple in North Carolina, a bunch in Southern California, Texas, Florida, here in Northern Virginia, D.C., and then the upcoming one is in DuPont, Washington, which will be there near Joint Base Lewis McChord, Pillar Church of DuPont. So we're looking forward to that in the next year and a half.
That's fantastic. Well, Josh, from a church planter, what was it that you said, hey, I'd like to start kind of working in the bigger network of SBCV to help other church planters? What was it rather than just focusing on your church plant? What was it that you said, hey, I can help others?
Yeah, well, it was the state convention, Larry Black, who challenged me. Hey, Josh, I know you're planting a church, but you need to think about beyond you, like what's beyond just you and your church plant. And I started thinking through all of that, looking through the book of Acts, different things, and then we decided to start raising up guys in our church from within to send out to plant. But it also gave me a global vision as well. Like, it's not, SBCV's connected me, like, in a sense, all over the world. It wasn't just about Louisa County, Virginia. it was about the nations. And it was through hanging out with the network and those guys that helped me to see that. I would have probably still been in my own little place, but I knew we could do more together than we could ever do alone.
That Colby, same question for you. What was it that, because you got a lot on your plate with all these pillar churches that you guys are planting, multiplying. What was it that was like, well, you know what? Maybe I can be a blessing to others outside of this pillar network.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it's always been about the mission, and the scope of the real mission God has called us in demands a level of partnership and multiplication. We want to do all we can as Pillar Church to be a part of what God is doing, but we also want to see, we want the sort of things that we've done to be normal for any church. We don't want to be exceptional. There's nothing particularly exceptional about training up future leaders, sending them out, building teams to start new churches. And so we want that to be the norm for all of our churches, because the mission is really what calls that out of us. And so for me, it was just the chance to be a part of helping other churches who were going to be trying to do this, try to learn from, what we've learned and learn from our mistakes, maybe go farther faster than we were able to.
Mm, great. So now it's not just SBCV church planting, although that is what we know it as. But Josh, there's a partnership here that we have called Send Network Virginia. Kind of put that into words, because when people see that, they're like, well, is that not church planting for SBCV, or is that something else? Kind of explain that for us.
Yeah, so several years ago, the opportunity came up for SBCV and Send Network with the North American Mission Board to partner together to help resource planters across Virginia better. And of course, our executive director, Brian Autry, he was kind of spearheading this and, considered it a great thing. We can always do more together. And so it was almost like, I think I've heard him define it. North American Mission Board and SBCV got together, had a baby, Sin Network Virginia. And we're all one. We partner together. We're the same entity. We're all Southern Baptists. So let's figure out how to make this thing work across Virginia to better plant churches and to resource planters in the most effective way that we can.
So, and when you talk about that, it's not, and again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're not saying that SBCV was doing a poor job before. So what is it that has made it even more effective?
Yeah, I would say SBCV was far ahead of the line with church planting. I mean, we had a robust church planting system. Our systems were in place. We were resourcing planters well. But we basically we went from good, I would say even great, to greater, and partnering with the North American Mission Board to help. Probably the partnership really maximized itself through residencies. So we were planting churches, we're planting churches, but how do we come alongside the local church? Because we really believe that churches plant churches. How do we come alongside the local church to equip them and help them to identify, train, and raise up leaders within their context? I think that's been the silver bullet that's helped make it good to great in a sense.
Yeah, the buzzword that we hear a lot now, which is good, which is residency. I'm hearing it all the time. I'm getting questions about it. So Colby, let me kind of break it down, because when we were planning churches back when SBCV was first started, we weren't talking about residencies at all. We were saying churches planting churches, planting churches, planting churches, and we were talking about raising up, make sure you have the DNA of church planting in your church plant, so then you can plant from that. Now we're talking about residencies. What in the world is residency?
I think the easiest way to understand it is by what we know of the term in some other settings. You think about in a hospital. My daughter, she has a congenital heart defect, had a few surgeries at UVA, and UVA is a teaching hospital. And there, when we would be seen by doctors, most of the time it was a medical resident. somebody who gone to medical school and had finished medical school, but in order for them to really practice, they needed to function under someone uh, who was more experienced and who could help them learn kind of on the job how to be effective at the actual practice of medicine with real people in real situations. And so the resident would talk. There was always an attending physician that would kind of wrap up the conversation, make sure everything went the way that it should. But that person was being ready so that when the resident was learning sort of on the spot. And in many ways, we see that, if we're going to plant more churches, the church is the best environment for someone to learn to be a pastor. And a lot has changed about educational systems. We got great benefits now for being able to do seminary online, modularly, sometimes in person, all the different things. But we've also seen the gap that if we're going to be effective in raising up future leaders, we need to take serious the role in the local church of development and training of our people and use all the tools at our hands to do that. And there's a residency is a plan in-house for people to learn to pastor and plant from within our local churches, believing that we can help equip them.
So is this like a pastor? If I'm a pastor of a church and I'm like, I want to get involved in this. I would love to help train the next generation of pastors and church planters. It's not just, hey, come on and just follow me around for a couple months. I mean, it's definitely more than that. Explain what it would be.
Yeah, well, I would say one of the values is it is come follow me around some, because a lot
Okay.
of what yeah, I mean, I can only describe what we do at Pillar, and what we've tried to teach others to do is a lot of pastors, when they take their first pastorate or a planter goes out, they've actually, without that opportunity to follow someone around, they've never seen somebody go visit someone who's dying in the hospital. They've never done premarital counseling, watched somebody prep for a sermon. So that access is a big part of it. There's an observation and presence to it that makes a residency work. Now, with that, there's also assignments. For us, it's like, you go minister in this area and do some leading within the local church where I can see you, and give feedback and build that, as well as let's have some marked times where you're reading, we're meeting and discussing important topics, and there's an educational piece. And I feel like those three things are what makes a residency powerful. You watch me, I watch you, we get together and talk about key skills, key areas of theology and development you need. And when that happens, in someone's life, they experience a significant growth on what it's going to look like for them to do it when they go out.
So, Josh, we've been talking about it in generalities, but can you be more specific? Where have you seen it work and work well, where a church says, hey, we're going to take on a resident, we're going to make this, and then see how God works in these men and these young men's lives?
I think one church that we could see where that's working is Bedrock Church. So years ago, a couple of guys and a team, three guys got together and said, let's plant a church together. It's not like one guy, it was three guys. And then that DNA, that multiplication DNA turned into many churches that have been planted by Bedrock Church in a small town of Bedford, Virginia. That's a rural context. And so that DNA carried on to each church they planted. And now what we're seeing is multiplication. Like when those churches start doing it and those churches start doing it. And we've also seen it with smaller rural churches. You don't have to be a big church, but you can be an average sized church to raise up a
So
leader and
wait,
say,
you don't have to have a big staff to
you
make
don't,
this work.
you don't have to have a staff. And here's the crazy thing. You don't even have to have a budget for it. Like it's totally free to bring a guy along beside you and train him up and teach him what you knew, because that's what somebody did for us, right? I mean, somebody invested in us, and that didn't cost any money whatsoever.
So if Colby, if somebody's listening to this and say, I would like to do this, either a pastor or church staff members, like, hey, I'd love to bring somebody on, or somebody's listening and say, hey, I'd like to be trained. How do you get started?
Yeah, well, I think for a pastor in a local church, you start by looking right within your congregation in the way that God is working there, and beginning to beginning to talk to people in your own church about the fact that God calls normal people to extend his mission of the gospel, and then be ready to prepare them when they say yes. I think the difference in mindset is, it used to be if somebody responded to a call to ministry in a local church, they were like, okay, let's send you away to the seminary. That person never came back, and we never thought about what they were going to actually do when they were done. And it's not that we
Mm.
didn't need pastors and that wasn't necessarily good, but the mindset of a church that's going to multiply is saying, we'll train you. We'll use whatever it takes to train you right here. And it is about, I think about a pastor, I would say to them, why don't you carve off 20% of the time that you use to invest in the people who are wrestling with a call to ministry? And so maybe for the first time, say to your church, hey, we have a vision to multiply and to send people to plant churches. And we believe that some of you might do that. There was a time period in our church, and as it's grown, this may not be true right now, where guys would say, somebody said, have you ever thought about planting a church? And one guy answered saying, I don't think there's any man in the church who hasn't been forced to think about whether God is calling them to plant a church. But that's the starting point, right? And some of those responded and said, "Yeah, I think he is." And then the commitment was, "Well, I will do everything I can to help you."
Mm.
And that's the starting place. And then it is putting some thought into how do I build a plan and a rhythm into our lives where we do some training and help that person develop.
What about the people or the person, Josh, that says to you, man, there are so many churches in Virginia. There are so many churches in Virginia. Do we really need more? Come on. Are you kidding me? What would you say?
I would say that in Virginia, 77% of the people we come in contact with every day are lost without Christ. And that's across the board. We could go into specific demographics, but over 3/4 of the people in our state right now don't have a relationship with Christ. It's hard for me to say we don't need more churches. Churches are, one, God's plan A. It's his idea to reach the nations. So we don't need less churches. We actually need a lot more. We're way behind on church planting. So we've got to see a multiplication effect take place across our state in order just to push back that darkness just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. With the millions of people that we have, and many more moving into Virginia,
Yes.
there are places. Even if you have a church in a city or a town, is that church really reaching everybody it can, even though it may want to? Because different churches can reach different people, and so that's something to keep your mind about. Like, keep an open mind about that. Could God be even using your church to plant something nearby? Have you ever seen that, Colby, where that's worked, where a church says, hey, I'm not planting something on the other side of the state, I'm going to plant something not too far away?
Yeah, I mean, that happens regularly. And kind of back to Josh's answer and the last question you asked, when I think about the people in the neighborhoods around my church in Dumfries, we were doing door hangers a few weeks ago at Easter time, and I probably hung 800 of them myself. And just while I was there, I was thinking about the statistics and how unlikely it was that any of them were going to get saved because I was hanging a door hanger. And I thought, what they need is a person in their life that's going to pursue them with the gospel. And so if we think about that 77% of the people that live across Virginia, my question would be to someone who thinks we don't need more churches is tell me who's going to pursue them uh, this year. Let's just give it a whole year. Will there be a Christian who is trying to connect with their life to share
Wow.
the gospel with them? And if we don't have the missionary force to do that, we need more churches that are raising up the people who will pursue people into their neighborhoods. And I just think that's a critical part of this motivation.
If you go to our website and sbcv.org, and you go to our church planting page, there's a saying right there. There's a little sentence. It says, the mission is too big to accomplish alone, which I really like. And it says, we're committed to assisting our churches in their task of filling the Great Commission by partnering with churches to plant healthy, multiplying churches. There's 3 different things underneath that. Become a church planter, partner with a plant, and gather with other church planters. So real briefly, as we wrap this up, I want to hit these 3 things. Become a church planter. Josh, how can people do that? How can they start that process?
Well, the pastor can first identify a guy that's got potential, and then he can always call Colby or myself. Our team around the state stands ready to help assist pastors who are trying to develop leaders. I'll also say, take a moment to say on October 5th and 6th, we have what's called a residency builder in Virginia. That's a 2-day experience to help pastors who are wondering, how do I train guys? How do I start a residency? What do I do? We're going to bring them in the room for 2 days and walk with them so that when they come out of there, they'll have a plan to develop future pastors and leaders. So our state convention wants to help. We've got tools to help. We're ready to help. We're ready. So
Yeah, retreats and that residency builder. And then the next one is partner with the plant. What does that mean, Colby? How do we do that?
Well, I mean, with our planters, it's so important that as they go out and answer God's call, they know they're not alone in what they're doing, and the partnership, is needed on many levels. One, they need help to just provide a missionary force in the early days of that church plant. There's a new church in Hope Church in Springfield. They've got a team of 15, 18 people, but as they try to dream up outreach projects, another church taking a weekend to come in and help them put on an outreach event is such a powerful way to make sure they know they're not alone in that mission. And it allows them to dream up and do things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do. All of them need financial partnership, and just really practically, we give support through SBCV and Send Network, but for each church planner, 6 or 8 churches that are with them financially in the early days can make the difference in them being able to focus and accomplish some of the early parts of church planting with a sense of real purpose. And so there's just it's not just the planter. It's us together holding the rope, working with them, praying for them regularly in our churches so people are behind them.
hey, I'll
And
also
one,
say too,
yeah,
real quick, if you
Josh.
don't mind, Brandon, a great way is to come alongside a church plant through coaching. So we want and need pastors, leaders in churches. Don't even have to be a pastor, it could be a lay leader that wants to walk alongside a church plant or a church planter spouse. Like spouses need encouragement, spouses need coaching. And on May 11th from 9 to 6 in Glen Allen, we're offering, once again, training. We'll come alongside, train them how to coach, help them get set up with a church planter. And that's an incredible way and encouragement for a church planter to have a guy walk beside him for a year, 2 years to plant that church.
That's fantastic. And for church planters, they're not alone because they have different connect meetings. I was looking here, May 19th, you've got a couple
That's
connect
right.
meetings, Send Network Connect, where guys, and when they get there, what do they do when they get there?
Go ahead,
Well,
Cole.
Send Network Connect is great for all of our listeners because it is for planters and their spouses, as well as churches, supporting churches, pastors, and staff that want to be involved in advancing the mission of church planting to come together at the same time. That's why we call it Send Network Connect, because this mission is a network of planting churches doesn't just belong to the people who are actually on the front lines planting the church. It's all of our mission. And when we get together in those moments, it gives us a chance to grow from one another in both directions, honestly, to share what's going on the field and things that are working that pastors in existing churches can take back to their own churches, and then vice versa. The pastoral skills and investment that planters often need from seasoned pastors, all that kind of relationship and sharing happens there at those Send Network Connect events.
That's fantastic. I don't want to forget to talk about the people groups, different language groups that we have that are planting churches, tremendous Hispanic church plants going on. But then beyond that, knowing Matt Gregory, who's on our team, helping with different languages, Josh, can you hit on this as we wrap up?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we all know, and we've heard the saying over and over, the nations are coming to us. So it don't take long in a community to realize that there's a lot of people that don't speak our language and likely won't come to our English speaking churches. So what do we do? Well, we plant churches where they're hearing the gospel in their native tongue, their heart language, and they don't have to go through an interpreter or anything. They're hearing that gospel. And so we're seeing just an amazing rising up of our I think about Ethiopian planners, our Korean planners, we got Chinese planners. I mean, it's just so diverse now, and our team is just seeing God do some amazing things through ethnic church planning.
Yes, I want to thank our guys, Raul and Jose, who are doing a fantastic job out there. Colby, any last things before we wrap up that maybe we didn't touch on?
Yeah, church planning isn't rocket science. I think for the person who's out here who thinks that it's listening and says, "Oh, well, that's for the special forces or whatever," it's about having a heart for people who are not getting pursued with the gospel and raising up people and teams to go pursue them in a place where that's not happening. And every church can do it. Every church can be a part of it, big and small, and we want to help.
Josh, as we really wrap up now, I'm not teasing anymore. We're going to really wrap up.
This is fun conversation.
It's a great conversation, but I'd love to hear something over the last year that's really touched your heart in church planting, of a church planter or a church plant or even a partner that's just really stuck out to you that you're like, wow, praise the Lord for this.
Right off the bat, I think about a guy named Chris Hess who's planting a church probably about, I want to say maybe 7 hours from here, down in the deep parts of Southwest Virginia and rich lands. He's running probably 25 or 30 people, and he's texting me every week, just super pumped. He just had baptisms. He baptized like 4 or 5 people like 2 Sundays ago. He's sending me all these pictures about what God's doing. And I'm just like, brother, that's just encouraging, man. I tell you, just how God's working, not just in the big cities, Chicago or LA or all those places, Richlands, Virginia, population like 800, 900 maybe in that town. And those are encouraging stories for me, just to see God working all over the place. So
Go into the highways and the byways
right.
because the harvest is truly, it's
Yes.
white into harvest. The fields are white into harvest. Guys, thanks so much. I mean, we just scratched the surface. We'll have to bring you back on.
Let's do it. We're ready.
Yeah. Thanks.
Hey, and if you need to get in touch with Josh or Colby, you can go to our website. You can email them. You can go to sbcv.org/church planting. You can go anywhere, and we're always ready to come alongside you in whatever stage you're in. It could be that you're in the stage of just, hey, I want to know more about this, or you could be a pastor and you heard this. You're like, yeah, you know what? We do need to raise up more leaders. As you guys know, one of the things that I'm part of is our SBCV partnership in London, where we're helping churches there. And what they've told us is for years and years and years, they have not raised up any leaders. And so because church leaders, pastors are retiring, there's hardly anyone to take over the churches. There's no one to plant. And so they're praying. They've got the Macedonian call to us, which is just amazing to me. One of the world's most incredible mission sending areas of the United Kingdom, England. And yet they're now saying to us, please come over and help us. We want to raise up leaders for Virginia, but you know what, guys? Some of these leaders could actually be helping other places in the world.
Yes.
Thanks again, guys. And we will talk to you soon. Thank you for listening to Not Alone Podcast, a ministry of the SBC of Virginia. We'll talk to you soon.